Well, it's a beautiful spring day here in the Pacific Northwest. All my hangar neighbors are out flying their planes. Got a neighbor over here with a Cessna 195, radial engine, of course, pretty awesome. I am rigging wings, probably the most challenging step of the Kitfox build, which is why a lot of people order not only quick build wings, but the factory pre-rig option. Still no regrets that I'm building my own wings. Pretty fun. There's the looming reminder on my wall up there of what happens if you build the wings wrong. I didn't do that, but it's been renting some space in my head from the very beginning, so I'm super careful that I don't repeat that same mistake. The steps in the manual, there's many. I want you to rig the fuselage and secure it in place. Mine's not really secured. It's sitting on top of the jack stands and a 5-gallon bucket in the back. I check it repeatedly to make sure that it's still level. I'm diverging a little bit from the manual instructions, which have you set a datum level off the bottom structure of the aircraft, a tube that goes across at the base of the firewall, and then there's a little bit heavier duty tube that goes across that joins the two lift strut attach points at the base behind the cabin there. It's kind of a hassle down there. Of course, there's a bunch of weld bead, there's brackets in the way, there's a bunch of other tubes which could clutter up your ability to level things out. They have you attach a couple blocks to your level. Not a super big fan of that, and I'm not a super big fan of crawling around the ground if I don't have to. So I did verify that the fuselage was level, at least side to side, with the spar carry-throughs. I have heard rumor that even the factory uses the spar carry-throughs, but I don't know that to be true, so don't spread that around. So this step here, just rigging the wings, went pretty quickly. I had the help of my youngest son and hangar neighbor who used to fly my Citabria. We did a dry fit of the arrow-shaped lift struts to make sure that that fork at the bottom would fit over the steel on the fuselage. I had already prepped the spars earlier in the day with the layout die, scribed that line, or the pair of lines, and then I did my offset line of 9/16 of an inch, scribed that line also. So there's the lift strut attached fittings have they're witness holes basically on the center line, and so you should always be able to see that line as you do the adjustment. With those clamped in place, then I had one person holding the wingtip. Well, one of us fit the lift strut at the fuselage end and then got the bolts through at the upper end. And then we used that sawhorse looking contraption there to hold up that wing, repeated it on this side, at which point the airplane will balance because it will definitely fall over on one side with just one wing on it. And then I came in with the jack stands and leveled everything out. So step one is, of course, establishing the wing sweep. I mentioned in the manual they have you build either 0-degree sweep or 1-degree sweep, forward sweep, because the original theory was that if you had a heavy engine like O235, O200, that you're gonna have a CG problem and that you're moving the center of lift forward by incorporating a 1-degree forward sweep. I think if you watch Brian Bowen's videos, his Kitfox Series 5, his yellow one that he sold, it had, I think it was an O235, but you could actually even see the 1-degree forward sweep in his videos. In my case, my radial engine is not like the other brand where it's super heavy. Its weight is going to be between a 912 and a 914. And so not only does that give me the basis for staying with 0-degree sweep, but I know people that are going with pretty heavy engines, O320. The factory actually put a Titan 340 on their factory demo plane. It had 0 degrees of forward sweep. And in their case, from my understanding, I am not the expert, they just moved the battery to the back. The manual has you tape, you'll see it mention tape or clamp or whatever to keep this from moving. Now, if this airplane were sitting even slightly nose up, the wings would be trying to fold on their own, and that could be catastrophic. So for the initial dry fit of these spar tubes, it was sitting probably 3 or 4 degrees nose down. And yesterday I came out here by myself, as mentioned, and I leveled this thing. Those wood blocks use the same holes for the main landing gear. It just has some hardware store galvanized crap holding those in place up on these Harbor Freight jack stands. And you'll see it took one tongue depressor on this side to get everything level. I don't have my level turned on this morning. We'll see how, yeah, see, I'm still good. and also good fore and aft. Let's check that. Just random spot checks here. Also 0. Super happy with that. So I did have a stool in the back. I ended up using the 5-gallon bucket, flipped that over, and some wood shims to get me in the right neighborhood. And so got lucky on that setup. And with the sweep, dihedral, and washout, then you come back and rinse, repeat, do the whole thing over again, because any one of these adjustments will probably affect the rest of them. Probably take a couple iterations to get everything dialed perfect. Re-verify that everything is 0, and then I'll need to establish that those witness lines that referred to, or excuse me, witness holes are over the top of the scribe lines and they haven't clocked, because I don't want that to happen again. And then the manual has you drill a hole. Well, you see that the hole in the top of the spar carry through isn't visible, so how do you find a blind hole like that? The digital level is kind of a curse. It allows me to speed up some of these steps. I'll expand on that. And it also has you chasing the tiniest amount of variation. For example, if you measure the dihedral at the wing root like they tell you to, and then you carry the level out further on the wing, you're going to find out that it's not level out there. And the reason is because gravity, right? The wing, as light as it is, the structure past the lift strut attached fittings actually has a little bit of a sag to it. Kind of funny. So the point is to measure the points I tell you to in the book, and don't look around too much. So right here you'll see, down underneath here, this is the forward lift strut attached fitting, and obviously the rear strut. The rear strut's the easy one because it just goes with these witness holes. I can't see them from here, but I'm kind of pointing to them. And then I just use the rubber strap and these hose clamps that came with the kit so that you can clamp everything in place nice and snug without risking scratching up those tubes. Now I did kind of blow it when I was installing the tie rod ends here because they have you set these so there's a 1/4 inch sticking out. Well, there's more than a 1/4 inch sticking out. And the reason is because I was kind of in a hasty effort to just get all these installed, and whenever they weren't going right, I just spin them until they fit and then they went in. So that's the other thing I'll be doing today before I do any permanent layout or any drilling any holes, is set all these so there's a 1/4 inch of thread between the end of the threads and the top of the jam nut. Well, what do they say? 1 step forward and 2 steps back, right? So came out here yesterday during my lunch break. Met a fellow Kitfox builder, Eric, who was going to pick through my extra parts, and he did that. While I was waiting for him to show up, I was slapping the level on the airframe and on the wings, and everything was 0 and 1 degrees. Everything was beautiful. Came back last night. Started checking things like the dihedral again, following as best I could. I didn't have the manual with me, and I'll get back to that in a second. And when I got to the washout stage, checking that, I thought I had it figured out, and things were kind of a disaster. I had way too much washout on that wing and none on this wing, even though I know they're built exactly the way they're supposed to be. I'm not worried about that. Anyway, Series 5 manual, Series 7 manual have some differences, and they're worth noting. And I was confused at first, one of the first days I was out here playing around. Then I went home and read the manuals, and I realized they do the same thing, they just approach it in an opposite fashion. So Series 5 manual has you establish the 1 degree of dihedral at the wing root of the aft spar, because that end is fixed. How you establish that is to loosen up the clamps on both forward and aft spar fittings and raise and lower by sliding these in and out in order to get my 1 degree. And then the last thing you do is come lock in your washout, which is again taking a scale from the bottom to the bottom here, getting your value going out to, I think it's 156 inches, and another 1/2 inch block, same as we did to build the wings. And then that's how that's established. Anyway, so the Series 7 manual has you check wing dihedral at the forward spar, and then you adjust the aft lift strut attached fitting to get your washout. Actually makes way more sense to me. So that's the step I'm going to follow. You'd end up in the same place, doesn't really matter. It's just one of those things worth noting. And I went home and I checked a few things, the forums. Thank the maker for the forums. First of all, I'm not the first person to decide to level the top of the fuselage instead of the bottom. And I'm not the first person to be confused by the differences in the manuals. So now that I've established that, it's no big deal. So taking a walk here, you can see this is that 3D printed plastic block. I have the tape on here where I marked out the 120 inches from the root end. And then of course I just set this up over the top of it. And the string comes in here nice and tight, wraps around that cleat. It's not going anywhere. And again, we're just checking the dimension from the string to the tube all the way down. And you'll see it looks pretty close, but I happen to know there's already an error, so it's no big deal. Well, after some head scratching and some moments of doubt, this all came together. This airplane is sitting here perfectly rigged. When I was filming before, I talked about how I found in my initial attempt to establish dihedral that my wing washout was too much on this wing and almost zero on that wing. At the same time, I had a little bit too much dihedral on this wing and not quite enough here. So today I repurposed these wing support sawhorses that again came with my project. There was a cross member that was down much lower and it was sitting super level. I checked it out, and it's because the previous builder had the airplane sitting flat on the ground, and I of course have it up that far, so that explains why I ended up moving these up. Now you can see it's not actually resting on there. I set those there and I established the top of that board as super level, 0.00 degrees. It doesn't wobble in the slightest bit. And I thought what I would do is block it up and shim it so that I could raise and lower the wing as necessary for the rigging purpose. And if I needed to, I could block it up enough that even as a one-person job, I could remove the lift struts completely. Anyway, so I did the same on the support on that end. Came back to this wing. This was hovering around 0.85, 0.9 degrees. Used my 4-foot level along the bottom here and loosened up this forward clamp because I knew the other one was already too high. Gave it some more dihedral, supported it that way, got this retightened, checked it out. I'm sitting at exactly 1 degree dihedral here. Then where it all came together for me was I didn't even have to move this fitting here. I was able to run my level with a 1/2-inch spacer block, just setting the level at 0 degrees like you do with a bubble level, and I got that dialed perfect. So fresh with the success, I came to this side. I again did not have to move that fitting because with this forward fitting having too much dihedral, all I had to do was loosen it up. I set up some shims out here, including a wedge-shaped shim so that I could drop it a little bit at a time. Took 2 iterations, and I was able to get this one dialed in at 1 degree. Check the washout, first try. Had my perfect 1/2-inch. So then, again, rinse, repeat. Then I have to check the wing sweep, and it actually looked perfect. But when I came in with my goofy little block here, which does, try to film this before, but who knows if it'll make it in here. So you can see it just touches the string. And of course the string's jumping around now because I bounced it. But here at the root end, same thing. Looking pretty good. Then I came over to this side and this sweep was incorrect. So I had to mess around and I pulled all this tape and found out that my center section here had creeped a little bit because again the zip ties aren't going to do the job and just barely enough tape isn't either. So I ended up shifting both wings because by the time I got moving this pretty close, that one was off. Chased it around a couple times. See here, make a liar out of me. Yep. That one's dragging pretty good. It is super close. Then I grabbed my 4-foot level again, checked the fuselage for level, 4 1/2, side to side. Got my 1 degree, my washout did not move. 1 degree, washout was good. And recheck this. So as of me standing here with this camera in my hand, it is as close to perfect as I think I'm going to be able to get. No forehead cam today or anything, but I did try and set this up so people can kind of understand what it is you go through with the leveling process. So this right here represents the wing spar, and they have you make a mark at 3 inches and 159 inches, and that's where the washout dimensions will be taken. And then they have you take a 48-inch level, They want you to have it set exactly level, so if it was a bubbled level, you would just touch that corner and require superhuman effort to freehand that thing and simultaneously measure 13/16 of an inch here, which should give me, in theory, the 1 degree per the manual. And if it's not, then you would need to loosen up the lift strut attached fittings, slide them in and out to get my 13/16, which is your 1 degree. Now this hokey looking math right here is the manual says 13/16 plus or minus a 16th. Well, 13/16 minus a 16th is 3/4, and plus a 16th is 7/8. Put those in decimal form so you can enter them into a calculator: 750, 0.8125, and 0.875. Now, what happens if you plug in into your calculator and figure out exactly what 13/16 turns into? Do a little trig. This is a tangent function, so 48 inches, 0.8125 gives me 0.9698 degrees, so real close to 1 degree. And just for laughs, I calculated the entire range. If it was the minus a 16th, so 750, it would be 0.8925 degrees and 1.044 degrees at the upper end. All right, well, the last filming I did on this was about 5 or 6 days ago. Since then, I went to New Mexico on a trip with my girlfriend. Anyway, so last I left off, I had this airplane perfectly rigged. I tucked a couple shims up underneath the ends and left it, and I thought I'd come back and see where I'm at. So first blush, I just came in here, turned this on. I've already run this ahead of time, so I know how the story works. Sitting here at 0 degrees. I did pull my shims I had underneath the ends of the wings just to help keep it from sagging. I don't know if you can see that. 1 degree, dead nuts. There it is, 1 degree. And now I can measure the washout, which is going to be easier because the forehead cam. See, where's my stool? So here's my rib end. You roughly, this is my mark for the rib number 1. And I'm hoping I get something real close to 0 degrees here. 0. And so this is my right wing. I'm going to turn around and go out to the tip of the right wing, and I'm going to use my 1/2 inch spacer and measure it again. If I get 0 out there with the 1/2 inch spacer, then I know I have my 1/2 inch incorporated. So I've demonstrated that the cabin is level, that the wings are both 1 degree. The left wing shows the 1/2 inch washout. And now I'm seated out here at the wingtip of the right wing. I'm not on the 159 inch mark, in case nobody has caught that yet. I will fine tune that as I go. I'm just really filming this for demonstration purposes. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch spacer block, and I should get 0 with the block. I have to be careful not to put any lift on the wing because it's pretty easy to do. 0. So pretty happy with that. Well, at this point, I think I have my wings rigged perfectly. I've got my sweep set. My Dihedral is at 1 degree. I've got the washout nailed at the 1/2 inch out at the wingtip end. There was the one measurement I had not done yet from the rudder post on the vertical fin where it measures out to the aft spar location. A location 120 inches out from each wing root. I said about doing it yesterday with the same nylon line I was using for checking my wing sweep, and there was too much stretch to it. In other words, it wasn't really telling me anything. So today I looked around for some wire that I could use that I wasn't using for anything, and I thought, yeah, it'll probably work. So I went out, made my check for the perpendicularity of the wing to the center line of the fuselage, and with the wire, I was able to get it within 1/8 of an inch without touching anything, so I'm pretty happy with that. Still not ready to drill holes, so I'm going to invite my hangar neighbor Nate out to my hangar tomorrow. He's going to meet me out there. I'm going to have him just look over my measurements and verify that I'm in good position. So I'm going to try and make a strap duplicator using some, at this point, scrap aluminum strip. And that's going to allow me to index to the hole I can't see underneath the, hidden underneath the edge of the tube spar. and then it will give me a position where I can drill a number 40, number 30 pilot, whatever I decide, through the top, and then I can open that up. Other news, you can see I got my Alaskan bush wheels, 26-inch Airstreak 2.0s, I believe. They're the lightweight ones, although I threw them on scale, 22 pounds. It's kind of cool. They actually have the tubes built in, so they're not tubeless in the normal sense where you count on the split rim sealing. They literally have a tube built in, and so that allows you to run extremely low pressures without worrying about the tire spinning on the rim, causing them to lose pressure. And then the other thing is I got my carbon fiber arrow shafts. These are super light, so that I can use to stiffen up the edges of the trailing edge material, which is going to keep these from kind of getting that batwing scallop shape when the fabric covering tightens up. So make sure you tune in for episode 12, where I'm actually going to take the drill, drill at least 2 holes in each of the lift strut attached fittings. I will drill that hole at the wing root of the forward spars. At that point, I'm committed to the rigging on the wings. They are what they're going to be at that point, minus the adjustments that take place at those tie rod ends at the outboard ends of the lift struts. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.